Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. In this episode we are going to be building something very big. It's the airport if you can't read the title. So first, let's go over the plan for the airport because this is not just a very small build, this is a massive build. This is a map of the entire city. So far, everything we have built has been right here in this area, which is very small compared to the entire thing. If you look in the bottom left corner, you can see clearly I have a spot planned for an airport, so that is obviously where it's going to go. This is a map of what it looks like currently, a little bit more detailed and zoomed in. We have a bridge that we built a few episodes ago, but the highway just ends, so we need to extend this to go all the way to the airport. And this is kind of a master plan of what the airport is going to look like. Things have already changed, but this is just a rough draft of what the airport's going to look like. And just for size comparison, this little ruler at the top, each section is 100 blocks. So this runway is about 1,600 blocks total. So yeah, she's a big one. So let's get started now, shall we? We have a lot to do. So getting started, I decided to do the first curve of many. This one was a little bit tricky because it had to go up the hill and then down the hill at the same time while curving. And then it didn't go into a perfect straight. Even though it looks like it's straight, it actually goes over 2 blocks and then diagonally 1 and then repeats itself. So it may look like a straight line, but it's not. So these curves were very difficult to make. But I pulled it off and it looked good. That first curve took about 2 hours to make, by the way. Then after constructing a brief straightaway, I am able to make another ginormous curve to turn the road back towards the east, so that way it can go alongside the dock in the future. And now I'm able to start building the road that's going to go to the airport. That one is a perfect 45-degree angle going straight to the airport, and I'm just going to have that go right over the highway. Stacking it diagonally is fairly easy. What definitely was not fairly easy was these circles, I can tell you that for sure. It took me a very long time to figure this out. I had to pull some big brain moves with lots of math to get these circles to line up, because these roads may appear to be straight, but they're not. If you look closely, they're all diagonals. So I had to use weird parts of the circle, parts that I've never used before, and it was just a learning curve for me. But with a lot of patience, I did figure it out, and I think it looks great. Now with the first level of on and off ramps complete, I can now do the second level of on and off ramps. So this one is going to be going to the airport over the other roads. I had to make sure that there was enough clearance for taller semis and trucks to fit underneath. I think that was about 9 blocks that I left in between each of the bridges, so that was a little bit difficult. That was probably another one of the hardest parts, was making sure that all of the bridges had enough clearance with each other. After a while, the curves got pretty easy because I started falling into a nice rhythm, but yeah, the clearance issue was a very difficult thing to deal with. And this is what it looks like after I have all of the lanes laid out. Now it is time to fill them all in with my materials for the asphalt. Now that all the roads are laid out and filled in, I can start terraforming. Some of the land needs to be shaped around the roads to make it flow a little bit better, and some of the ramps need some support underneath them, so that's what I was doing here. This took quite a while, but with the help of some brushes and worldedit, this took maybe like 2 hours to do, so not too bad, and it was actually pretty satisfying and fun to do. After I'm done with all the terraforming, the next step is to do the detailing on all of the bridges. That includes guardrails so cars don't go flying off the edge, and pillars, beams so that they're supported and not just floating in the middle of the air. I will admit, probably the longest part of this was the underside, so the pillars and the beams of all the bridges. Again, it's just a lot of diagonals, and I had to do it all by hand. Very little world edit could be done. So yeah, that's what the next step is. And she's finally complete. Just kidding. This is just the structure of it is done. We now have to do all of the details. Fun. The first piece of detail is to put all of the stripes on the road. I had to do this by hand, again, because it's not perfectly straight. And then just add some texturing on the roads. I just did this with a brush. And then I can then extend these dash lines and the texturing all the way to the end of the highway. And I'm just going to do that on all of the roads. So this took quite some time. After that's done, I can now get started with the street lights and all of the signage for these roads. That is very essential. We need to be able to see the roadway at night, so street lights are a must, and I went crazy with them. They are everywhere. And then after that, we can get started with a bunch of trees, and they have to be palm trees because we are on a tropical island, and there are palm trees everywhere, so that's what we're doing here. And the last thing to do for this interchange is to build a bunch of those big green signs telling people where to go, because without those, everyone would be lost and there would be chaos ensuing. So I built a lot of these. I'm only going to show 2 because that would be a little redundant, but once these are done, the entire interchange is now completed. So this is what the map looks like now with all the building we've done. We now need to construct where the airport is going to be, and that is this giant square right here. So let's do it. The giant square is going to be double-decker, the bottom layer is going to be arriving flights, and the top layer is going to be departing flights. So I'm going to build that interchange right here. We're going to have 3 lanes go to the upper deck and 3 lanes go to the lower deck. So there will be plenty of signage telling people where to go, and that way if you're picking somebody up, you don't have to sit in traffic for somebody who's leaving. It's just a good way to break up the traffic. With the top layer done and filled in, I am able to do the arriving flights on the bottom, following the exact same shape as the square above. By the way, that giant square is 280 blocks by 280 blocks, so it's pretty big. And then once I am finished with that bottom square, I'm able to hook it back up to that road so that way people can do a full loop around the square. Another thing I wanted to add was terminal bypass lanes. So those lanes are going to be on the inside of only the bottom layer, and these lanes are for if you only want to go to one terminal and you don't want to have to drive through both of them. So let's say you're going to terminal B but you don't want to drive through A, you can bypass A and go to just one terminal. And then those lanes also loop back around, so if you do a loop and you didn't find your person, you can loop back around for them. Once I am satisfied with how everything works, I'm going to start on the details. I'm not going to go too crazy with them because I'm going to save some for the next episode, but I'm going to do just enough to where I know what the general details are going to look like. And then after I'm done with this bridge, I'm going to go back to that long straight road, and I'm going to add some trees, just fill in some grass, make things flow all nice and pretty, just so that I don't have to go back and do that later. And just like that, we have just added about 3 miles worth of roads to our city. Let's go. Thank you all for watching to the end of the video. I spent 30 hours on camera, 5 hours of work off camera, 10 hours rendering, 8 hours editing, for a total of 53 hours. If you don't think that's deserving of a subscribe, you are mistaken. Hit that subscribe button and that like button because that is crazy. That is by far my biggest build, and this is only part 1. I will see you guys next week for part 2. I'm super excited to start actually building an airport. Let's do this. See you guys next week. Bye.